this. Okay, there we go. We can see it. Okay, so can you see that clearly enough?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
I'm sure there's one there that probably grabs your attention. I mean, I'm assuming I'm referring to the referring to one that you know.
Well, I mean, I'm guessing that I'm understanding the titles of these. So when I see Alpha Cartoon, I assume that's the old cartoon that I remember.
Okay, I'll explain what this is.
Okay.
So
I also
the trans
noticed GoBots doesn't seem to be a Transformers thing.
oh there is a reason for that. There
Okay.
is also a reason there's there twice as well.
Oh
Yeah,
yeah.
there is a reason for that, which I'll explain. Okay, so the Transformers multiverse is broken up into what is called clusters or universal clusters,
Mm-hmm.
and that's what these are on the side here with all the names. You know, like G1,
Sure.
2001 Robots in Disguise, Unicorn Trilogy, all these on this right side. So I think these first six at the top are the main clusters, and then all these others are like minor clusters.
Sure.
So, and they basically that's where where specific stories or comics or cartoons are located. So this one at the top, the Primax cluster, everything G1 is in that cluster. That doesn't necessarily mean that everything in the same cluster is connected to each other, but like they're like a shared theme or something similar about them. So this you would have the G1 cartoon, the Marvel comic, and then you would have also all of the splinter timelines, like the UK comics would be a splinter timeline of the Marvel comic, and you would have reboots like Dreamwave and IDW's comics would be in this cluster, and you'd have all these other ones like Robots in Disguise or Veron cluster. That's Robots in Disguise or the 2001 show. I think that cartoon is the only thing in that cluster, so it's a very small cluster.
Mm-hmm.
Obviously, the Primax cluster is the biggest because it has so much there. And you have like Unicron Trilogy, the Oryx cluster, Tyran cluster is the Bayverse. It's not exclusively the Bayverse. The Bumblebee movie is in that cluster as well. I've just said Bayverse because it's easy to understand it that way. Yeah, you have Malgus cluster, Transformers animated, the Union cluster. That's all of the line continuity stuff, which I have talked about before.
Mm-hmm.
Fornax is all the Creo Transformers stuff. I think I'm pronouncing this right. Ioka enough. The Transformers wiki mentions this cluster as all the forgettable merchandise. I don't know if that's actually the case, but I've just gone with side merchandise because that explains it better.
Sure. That
I
makes
would also
sense.
point out the Transformers. I would also point out the Transformers wiki is only so helpful in this regard. They definitely
Mm.
like to look down on stuff like this. Whether whether it's canon or not, they look down on this deeper information because they're more focused on the franchise being a goofy 80s cartoon. The Nexus cluster, that's actually a really important one because that's the home of the Transtech, they're the ones who are monitoring the multiverse and keeping records of everything. Also, all this like clusters and all this identification of different universes is actually called the Transtech notation. So they're the ones that come up with how this all is laid out. I do have some example images to make it a little easier to understand. Uh, this one you probably noticed. The quad warp cluster is the real world. I don't know if, yeah, fine.
Hmm.
Oh, too much.
Yeah.
There. Yeah, so
Yep.
right there. Quad wall cluster, the real world. Each of these clusters have different levels of how easy or difficult it is to travel from one universe to another. As
Mm-hmm.
you can imagine, the quadral cluster has incredibly strong barriers and is very difficult to get to, given that it's the real world. I think, yeah, I think the Union cluster is also one that has very strong borders from between other universes. Okay, and then here we get to this cluster, which I, for the life of me, cannot pronounce. I don't know if that cluster was named as a joke or if they intentionally came up with this name. I don't think my mouse is even pointing at the right thing. Or actually, no, my mouse on my screen is pointing at the right thing. On the stream, I don't think it is.
Yeah, is it the one next to the GoBots?
If I go slow down. Yeah, this one right. Yes. It's like, yes, yeast, yes, however you say
Yairist?
that.
Yairist?
I don't know if that was meant as a joke. I don't know who came up
Yairist.
with the name for that cluster, whether it was a joke thing. But yeah, this one is so this cluster is the home of the GoBots.
Mm-hmm.
If I remember, yeah, okay, so that cluster is the Hasbro GoBots, while this second cluster down here that also says GoBots,
Mm-hmm.
the one that doesn't have a hyphen in the middle of Go and Bots,
Right.
that one is the original GoBots cartoon, Challenger the GoBots, the
Oh,
non Hasbro one. Yeah, for some reason, the Hasbro version of GoBots and the non Hasbro version of GoBots are two separate clusters rather than one. I don't know why.
mm-hmm.
This one right here, the Simon cluster, which is comprised of all of Takara's non-Transformers brands, like Diaclone and Zoids. That's also the oldest cluster in the multiverse, because Zoids technically came out before Transformers. So that one is actually an older cluster. Because I believe before, the Primax cluster up here at the top was considered to be the oldest before everyone discovered that the Simon cluster exists in this multiverse. Here's the one I was referring to about, you would probably notice, the Lucas cluster contains all the
Ah,
Star Wars Transformers.
yeah. I didn't catch that because I was focused on the descriptions. I didn't realize the names were descriptive. Yeah, that's
Yeah,
interesting.
yeah. Some of these require a bit of explanation, and some of them are
Yeah,
relatively self-explanatory.
sure.
Yeah, that one is interestingly enough, the Lucas cluster doesn't have any accompanying fiction with it. It's only the only fiction associated with the Transformers Star Wars is the bios on the back of the toys boxes,
Gotcha.
and the bios themselves literally just describe the 6 Star Wars movies, except
Yeah,
everyone has transforming jets and stuff, or everyone's fighting the war with
that would make a
mechs.
very interesting mental gymnastics to imagine what that alternate
Yeah.
reality would be like.
Yeah, the Star Wars movies play out exactly the same as they do in the actual movies, but everyone has like big mechs that turn into their vehicles.
Mm-hmm.
I feel like that would actually affect the plot of the movies, but that's what that's the story. That's the only story we got for that particular cluster. Rovio, I'm probably not pronouncing that correctly, but I'm going to continue anyway,
Mm-hmm.
is the Angry Birds Transformers, or the cluster that contains the Angry Birds Transformers. And then this last one at the very bottom, Zorbiter, which contains the robotics cartoon. I think it's a movie, actually.
Mm-hmm.
And these ones over here, I'm going to zoom out a little bit. So these over here, these aren't clusters. These are rather description or different names that tell you which piece of media the specific universe or the thing in question is.
Mm-hmm.
Actually, it'll be easier to explain with the actual examples, but I'll quickly try this now. The this is all of the different pieces of media within the multiverse. So Anything with alpha at the end refers to a cartoon. Beta refers to tech specs. Gamma refers to comic books. Delta refers to movies. Epsilon is botcon / the convention fiction.
Mm-hmm.
Zeta is text stories, or like prose stories or something along those lines. Uh, Eta, that's probably not how you say that, is audio. So something like CD dramas or like audio books, that sort of thing.
Mm-hmm.
And Theta is script reading. The cluster, or not cluster, the identification isn't exclusively script reading, but that's what I've chosen to go with to make it easier to understand.
Mm-hmm.
Right. Iota is internet only information. Kappa is games, and then Lambda, I'm probably not saying that right either, refers to covers, like comic book covers or a still image, that sort of thing.
Mm-hmm.
I suppose story pages from the Japanese continent would also fall into that identifier. So this would be mostly alternate covers and variant colors for comics. If I too far. So if I go over to some examples I've pulled up, so this is basically how the identifying the different universes. So this one here, Primax 984.17 Alpha, that's the Generation 1 cartoon, specifically the American cartoon.
Mm-hmm.
And weirdly enough, I don't know why this does this, but every episode of the cartoon has its own coordinates. But most of the time, you would just, when you're referring to the universe as a whole, you would just use the first coordinates for the first episode, which is this one here. Oh, once again, I forgot the mouse isn't. Oh, I'm looking at my screen and assuming that it's matching up, but it's not. So Primax refers to the cluster it's a part of. Alpha refers to what kind of media it is. So Primax, G1, Alpha, cartoon, and then the numbers 984.17, that's the actual date the first episode aired, which in this case is 9 is September, 84 is 1984, and then 0.17 is the 17th of that month. And you basically do this this is basically how the different comics, cartoons, games, like whatever it is, would be ordered like this. And you can technically do this with content that doesn't have an actual descriptor, because you can sort of just figure it out for yourself. Like you go, oh, this is this comic book is in the same continuity as this cartoon, so it would be gamma for comic book, and because it's connected to this cartoon, then it will be in the same cluster as that cartoon. So if you like talking about like say a comic book that takes place in the G1 cartoon universe, or any G1 universe, I suppose, then you would have Primax at the start. Then you would have the numbers for. I keep forgetting that the mouse isn't in the right spot,
Mm-hmm.
on the stream itself. Yeah, and then you would have like the month at the beginning, then the year, then a point, and then the day that the specific thing came out. So for over here for the comic book, I've actually used a picture of the Marvel's Generation 2 comic book, but that's in the same universe as the Marvel US comic.
Mm-hmm.
So I've used the same coordinates as that. But I will just point out that the coordinates for the G2 comic would probably be slightly different. But because it's the same universe, you just use the primary coordinates, which is Primax 984.0 gamma. I don't know why it's a 0, because that would imply that it came out on a 0 day, which doesn't exist.
Mm-hmm.
So I don't know why but that's what the coordinate is. I don't understand why that's the case. I believe for comics they use the cover date rather than the day it actually came out in, which sometimes is different with comics, but I guess that's just all the case with comics in general. Yeah, and then obviously gamma at the end for the to describe what kind of media is. It's a comic book. And then this one over here, the Transformers Cybertron or War for Cybertron game.
Mm-hmm.
Now here's a weird thing that I don't fully understand why the this. So on the Transformers wiki page, they describe the War for Cybertron game as being in the Primax cluster, which is weird because that game takes place in the aligned continuity, so it should be a Union cluster rather than a Primax cluster. And the TF wiki tries justifying this by saying that the developers intended the War for Cybertron game to be a prequel to the cartoon, but I don't fully buy into that decision because High Moon Studios, the developers, were approached by Hasbro to make a game tying into the aligned continuity that they were making.
Mm-hmm.
So I find it difficult to believe that this game is in the Primax cluster with the G1 cartoon. Now, you could make a case that the game could fit into the continuity of the cartoon. You may have to use a bit of headcanon to make it fit, but it could work. But given that it's not in that continuity, well, because it's officially not in that continuity, it's best to just not go with that. So I've actually used the coordinates for the second game, Fall of Cybertron,
Mm-hmm.
which is classified as being in the same cluster as the aligned continuity for some reason. Some of these decisions I don't fully understand, but I've just gone with the coordinates for the Fall of Cybertron game. But considering both games are in the same continuity, it's not too big. It's not too big of an issue. I've just used this name instead. So it's
Seems fair.
Union 812.21 Kappa, which refers to a game. I think, yeah. So here's a couple of the other things that exist in the Simon cluster. So got Zoids, Diaclone, the Brave series, and then Starry Wars. I'm probably not saying that right. I'm kind of curious. Did you know about Starry Wars, or however you're supposed to pronounce that?
No, not at all.
Yeah, that was one of the other Takara toy lines that was brought to America. Yeah, so some of these don't have like direct connections to Transformers. Obviously, Diaclone is the most obvious one
Mm-hmm.
because the toys that made Transformers were initially Diaclone toys that were repainted and given new identities.
Yeah.
And although Hasbro is fond of taking the original Diaclone color scheme for different characters and bringing them into Transformers as new characters, and even Takara's done that as well. Like they've taken the Masterpiece Sunstreaker toy, they've taken that and released it in red, which is the original Diaclone colors, and called it Spin Out. And Takara even added some accompanying like fiction on the bio of that toy,
Mm-hmm.
both placing it in the Japanese G1 continuity and also establishing Spin Out as an original Diaclone member of like from the Diaclone universe brought
Mm-hmm.
over to the Transformers universe and turned into an actual Transformer. So you will have some instances of Diaclone character or Diaclone figures either made into new characters or actually brought over from the Diaclone universe into the Transformers universe,
Mm-hmm.
which Hasbro is actually very fond of doing currently. Because I think one of the designers at Hasbro is actually like really fond of helping collectors fill out like their mini collections.
Mm-hmm.
So there is enough Diaclone repaints of Transformers that you can have like your own mini Transformers Diaclone shelf now. There is also the different Diaclone reboots also exist in this cluster. Now, this cluster specifically exists right on the edge of the Transformers multiverse and kind of overlapping with the Megaverse and the Omniverse and with like other stuff outside of Transformers. Obviously, by
Sure.
virtue of the fact that it's not directly Transformers, but it is from the same company, and
Sure.
yeah. So yeah, here's an image to help with the yeah. So here's some stuff in the Primax cluster. You've got the G1 cartoon, the movie, Beast Wars and Beast Machines, Generation 2. Obviously, any Transformers fiction that continues on from an all existing fiction effectively takes place in the same cluster as it. So, the Generation 2 comic, even though it's not Generation 1, it is a continuation of it, so it still goes in the Generation 1, like Primax cluster. And obviously, you got the reboots like Dreamwave's comics and IDW's comics here. I have also used an image from the Marvel UK, specifically Time Wars,
Mm-hmm.
mostly because I really like that cover for that specific volume. It is a very cool cover, just with like an insane Galvatron with half his face blown off and a time vortex behind him. And also he's attacking Power Master Optimus Prime. Yeah. Oh yeah, and also the some of the free H Productions comics. The
Mm-hmm.
ones I've mentioned multiple times before,
Right.
because those ones take place in the same continuity as the G1 cartoon. They would be in this cluster as well. Obviously, you just identify them as Epsilon for convention stories. Uh, oh yeah, and there's also an instance of like different stories taking place in the same universe, but
Mm-hmm.
like ended up as like fractured timelines. So like with the Wings universe that I talked about on Cultural Fortress,
Right.
because that's not directly connected to G1, but it's rather a splinter timeline, that would still go in this cluster. It just wouldn't be directly connected to the cartoon. Yeah, so the different cluster would encompass fractured or splintered timelines as well as other universes and reboots of like different universes. Actually, I think the Dreamwave and IDW are more reboots of the comic books rather than the cartoon.
Okay.